And I'm the Support Services Manager, and we have Caroline, one of our children's librarians, with us today that's going to talk about all things middle grade fiction, which is also one of my favorite genres as well. So I'll chime in with a few things at the end, but go ahead, Caroline, tell us your first pick.
Okay, so we're talking middle grade, but we're specifically talking about middle grade that appeals to adults as well as kids. Because I'm kind of a weird person, also known as a children's librarian, and so I read a lot of middle grade fiction, and I acknowledge that most adults don't, but my three picks are ones that I think grown-ups will like just as much as kids will like.
Awesome.
My first pick is actually brand new this year. It just came out a couple months ago, but it's called When You Trap a Tiger. It's by Tay Keller. And it is a magical realism novel that's kind of inspired and influenced a lot by Korean folklore, which was actually really interesting for me. I feel like there have been a lot of Korean folklore books inspired recently, and I am not very familiar with Korean folklore, so it's been interesting to kind of learn more through the literature that I've been reading. But it's about a character named Lily. She and her mom and her grumpy teenage sister moved to this tiny town in Washington to move in with their halmoni, which is Korean for grandmother.
Okay.
And Lily doesn't really understand at first what's going on, but it becomes apparent pretty quickly that her halmoni is very, very sick. And her halmoni is one of those women who like dresses up in glamorous Hollywood clothing to go to the grocery store. She's very lively, very energetic, and that's just not really matching what's happening to her. But at the same time that all of this is going on, Lily, on their way into town, sees this giant magical tiger.
Ooh.
Which is kind of interesting. And at first she's not sure if it's real or not, or if she's imagining it, or what's making this tiger appear to her. And in Korean mythology, tigers are famously like tricksters. And so the tiger kind of tells Lily that years ago, halmoni stole something from the tigers, and they will only make her better again if Lily can get what halmoni stole returned. I love this book. I need to start by saying that, because I think it's beautifully written. It has 5-star reviews. But especially, I'm a huge fan of magical realism for children, and especially for middle grade readers, because I think that kids that age, and we're talking kind of like 8 to 12-ish, are still at a point in their life where they want magical things to be real, and they want to see giant tigers, but they also are becoming a little bit skeptical, and they're not quite sure whether that's real or not. And so I love this book because it deals with these magical elements. It has all of this interesting folklore, but it also is just about real things that kids can recognize and identify with. You know, Lily's anxious about her relationship with her sister. She doesn't feel like she has good friends. She is anxious about fulfilling this like quiet Asian girl stereotype, but at the same time she's like, I'm a quiet person, so am I bad if I'm just quiet?
Or is this just me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So love this book. Highly, highly recommend this one. And it is available on Overdrive for holds. You'll have to wait a little bit, but it's a great read.
And we should just say to our audience, middle grade is geared towards 8 to 12-year-olds. Do you want to sort of give a brief definition of magical realism, just if people don't know what that is?
Yeah, so magical realism, we're talking about books that are based in reality but have some sort of magical element kind of imbibing them. So it might be that there are giant magical tigers. It might be that things are just kind of quite not like the real world. And oftentimes with magical realist novels, you'll see things where you're like, oh, that doesn't quite seem like it could happen, but maybe it could.
Yeah. So it's less fantasy, more based in reality, but with some magical elements.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
What's your second pick?
Okay, my second pick is brand new, just came out last week. It's called The List of Things That Will Not Change. It's by Rebecca Stead, who is one of my favorite authors. And back when the world was still open, I just met her a few weeks ago at the Public Library Association conference, and she's a lovely woman, so I feel good endorsing her books. But she's a Newbery winner for When You Reach Me, and this is her newest book. It is our 6-star middle grade book so far this year, so it's gotten a lot of great reviews. And this one is also available for holds on Overdrive, so you'll have to wait for it. But if you've ever read Rebecca Stead, she just has this incredible ability to write tween characters. Like, she just has this, she's somehow in tune with middle grade readers.
Sort of get in their brains and make it fun and not like kitschy.
Exactly. Like, she's writing kids that feel believable, that kids think feel believable, and grown-ups think feel like real kids. I think that it's these characters that kids can identify with, but parents will also feel nostalgic for and say, like, oh, I remember when I felt like that as a child. So this new one, it's told in first-person narration. Our 12-year-old narrator is Bee, and she's reflecting back on things that happened to her when she was 10, which is also kind of an interesting way to approach it, because we're seeing, like, with a little bit of youthful introspection, kind of what's happening. But when Bee's parents got divorced, they gave her a notebook that was filled with a list of things that would not change. So that's where we get our title from. And just because her parents aren't married anymore, you know, they tell her, we'll still love you, we'll still see you, you'll still spend time with both of us. And 2 years later, Bee's dad gets engaged to his boyfriend, Jesse. And Bee's, like, just thrilled about this. She loves Jesse, she loves her dad. You know, she has this list to kind of hold on to for comfort. And she is excited because Jesse has a daughter, which means Bee will get a sister, which is what she wants the most in the world. And then, you know, all the parents kind of warn her, you know, you need to let Sonia react how she's going to react, because maybe she won't feel quite the same way as you. And then Sonia arrives, and she seems really, really hesitant to the whole situation, and she's homesick, and she, you know, wants to go back to California to be with her mom, and isn't quite sure that she wants a new sister and wants a new family and all of this, which starts to make Bee feel really, really anxious. And we see throughout the novel, we see Bee interacting a lot with her friends, a lot with her family. It's a very character-driven novel. We also see her interacting with her therapist, Miriam. And we see Miriam work through her feelings and her anxieties that Bee's feeling, which is such an interesting kind of inner look at a child that we don't necessarily get from very many novels.
And giving kids that opportunity, I think, to see, like, what is it like if you do meet with a therapist and sort of get that bird's eye view.
Exactly, and it really destigmatizes it. It really doesn't make it seem like this terrible, scary thing. It's just someone you can talk to and open up to. So, you know, she's kind of going through these feelings, these anxieties, and then there's also this kind of looming, mysterious thing that she keeps alluding to, something that happened at her family's lake house the previous summer.
It's a mystery. It
is a little bit of a mystery. So it's really this incredible, very rich, character-driven story that I think will appeal to adult readers as well as kids. So I'm a big fan of this one.
So you said this one had six 5-star reviews?
So 6-starred reviews.
So how do they get the stars?
So we, as librarians, we look at different review journals. And of our major review journals, they'll give starred reviews to books that are especially good.
Okay.
We kind of, as a library, we take 6 journals into consideration when we're making our list. There are other reviewing sites, but of those 6, all 6 gave a star.
Wow.
A list of
so
things
that
will not
means
change.
It's a darn good book.
It is a darn good book. It's a good one.
All right. What's your third pick?
Okay, so
today?
my third and last one is a little bit older, 2016, Wolf Hollow by Lauren Wolk. And our library kind of has a special, I feel like, attachment to Lauren Wolk. She's visited us. Our director, Jean Nelson, was on the Newbery committee that gave her a Newbery honor for Wolf Hollow, so we really like Wolf Hollow here.
Yeah.
But I love this book. I really, really love this book. It's kind of the first book that made me fall back in love with middle grade fiction. Because I'd been in college, I hadn't been reading as many books for children, and I read this one, and I was like, whoa. There are very talented people writing very distinguished books, specifically with children in mind.
Yeah.
And that I just really, really love. So
and it has a beautiful cover.
It does have a beautiful cover.
I love the cover of this book.
It has an incredible cover. And what I love about the cover is it has the first line kind of featured in the artwork, and I think this book has an incredible first line, which I wrote down so I can read it to everyone. It says, "The year I turned 12, I learned how to lie," which is just such a good hook.
Yeah, so intriguing. Like, what comes next?
What comes next?
Why is she lying?
Exactly. So it's the story of Annabelle, who's a 12-year-old, and she is kind of unwrapping events that happened in the 1940s in her very small rural Pennsylvania town. Specifically, the arrival of this bully, Betty Glengarry, who I think is the absolute meanest child in all of literature. But she seems very believable, but she is a terrible, terrible bully. And Betty starts to kind of focus her bullying on Annabelle. And Annabelle deals with what I think a lot of kids deal with, is what should I do about this bully? Like, if I tell my parents, will that actually make it stop? Will it make it worse?
Yep.
If I tell a teacher, will it make it stop? Will it make it worse? Will anyone believe me if I say this? And not to give too much away, but Annabelle does tell people, and it doesn't really work out for her because, Betty's grandparents just say, no, that's not our Betty. She wouldn't do that. She's not a bully.
Yeah.
But she does kind of switch her focus from Annabelle to this World War I veteran named Toby, who's this very withdrawn man. And I think obviously for us, we would look at him and say that he has PTSD. But in the 1940s in rural Pennsylvania, they don't know that that's
Right.
what's
That wasn't
going
a
on.
thing that they named yet.
Exactly. And so, we kind of see these terrible things that Betty does to Toby to try to get Toby in trouble. And it's so heartbreaking. But really what's interesting is that this book is kind of at its core about truth and about honesty and about even these very little lies and how they can kind of unravel people's lives. It's a very sophisticated book for children.
I really enjoyed that book as well.
Yeah.
I read it several years ago, but it stuck with me.
Yeah. So, and I will say, she did begin this book as an adult novel and then kind of changed gears and turned it into
I
a
didn't
middle
know
grade.
that.
So that might be a little bit why it appeals more to adult readers. But it's a great one, definitely. And it is available on Overdrive with a pretty short hold list. So if you're interested, definitely go check it out. And I should mention Lauren Wolk's newest novel comes out on Tuesday. It's called Echo Mountain. It's set in the Great Depression. And it deals with a lot of the same kind of themes. And of course, you get Lauren Wolk's incredible writing. So definitely check that one out as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline.
Of course.
A few I thought of that I just want to highlight. Echo by Pam Munoz Ryan is by far the best audiobook I've ever listened to. You can read it, and on Overdrive, the ebook is available within a few days. But I think you should hold out for the 3-week wait that you might have to wait on Overdrive because listening to it is really where it's at.
Yeah.
Music plays a central role in this book, and so having that harmonica music playing,
Yeah.
it's tops.
We love Pam Munoz, right?
Yeah, she's great.
So good.
The other one that I'll mention is Wild Robot by Peter Brown. This one's going to be a longer wait on audio, but again, the audio has some cool sound effects. I'm not usually into like full cast readings or sound effects in my audiobook. This one was done really well. The ebook is about a 4-week wait, with the audiobook about a 12-week wait. Although, if more Provo residents put it on hold, the likelihood of us buying more copies will go up. So take that into consideration. Wild Robot, especially, I think would be a really fun read aloud with your family or to listen aloud as you're doing things around your house or on a drive. It's just a really, really fun story of a robot and some animals, woodland animals. So.
It's a great one. And if you don't want to wait for the audiobook, the ebook does have illustrations. It's an illustrated chapter book.
Which it's really cool illustrations as well.
Yeah, it's a very, you hear robot, you hear wild, you're not quite sure what to expect, but it's a very rewarding read. I like that one quite a bit.
All right, well, that's it for our Friday faves. We'll see you next week for some more great content from the Provo City Library. Have a good weekend.